Hi everyone, my name is Jocelyn and welcome to All We Make is Good. Today's episode is going to be going through all of the things that I've made in the last 2 years since I posted an actual podcast episode. I kind of feel like I hit a wall with posting. Back then I was really daunted by the whole setup process of actually sitting down to record. I had a fancy camera, I had a fancy microphone, and lots of cables, and the setup time and effort just took all of my motivation away from recording, and so I stopped doing it. As much as I really, really wanted to get back into it for like the entirety of the 2 years. So I have eliminated all of my fancy equipment, and I am just going to record on my phone here in my new crafty gathering room that I have just finished setting up literally this morning. I started with a rug in this room. Just some background. I have lived here for almost 3 years. I think I bought this house at the end of 2021. So I've lived here for almost 4 years actually. And only just this year did I decide what to do with this room. This, I think, would normally be considered a dining room, but I don't need a dining room. So I now have a lovely sitting room. I started with the rug, and then that stayed there for like 6 months without me doing anything else in this room. And then just this past week, after getting home from Rhinebeck, I finally was like, that's it. I am setting up this room. I'm gonna start podcasting again. I need my little knitting space. So I got this couch, which is actually a lovely like eggplant color. I'll put a clip up of like the full room so you can actually see it. This lovely eggplant color. I think it kind of pulled the wall color into the carpet because the carpet's like all beiges and blacks. And then I found this blanket that I made 2 years ago, and it just felt like fate that I even had it. It's like the perfect burgundy color as the walls. It's the same eggplant color as the couch, and like just like these beiges and browns and stuff pull the rug together. It pulled the whole room together. So it is the coziest thing ever. I got it for I think $50 on Facebook Marketplace. I love a bargain. I brought my old armchair from, I guess it's a recliner. The huge barrel recliner that I used to record in upstairs in my bedroom. I brought that downstairs to be in here as well. I have a rocking chair, which I still need to get cushions for. I brought down my yarn shelf, so now I get to look at that every time I sit in here. I brought down a little nightstand from upstairs in my bedroom as well that was left here when I bought the house, so I didn't even have to buy it. So I have a little tiny TV sitting over there on top of that. I got 2 end tables, which were also very cheap. I think it was $10 actually for the 2 tables. And the poor woman had just had dental surgery, so she was like struggling to bring them outside to me. I was like, oh my God, you poor thing, please go sit down. Literally fresh out of dental surgery. You go sit down, I will take care of these tables. So I brought the tables home, and the coffee table, which you are currently perched on, I just got this morning. So brought that home from a couple towns over, and I said, you know what? This feels perfect. I'm gonna sit down and record right now. And here we are. So the plan is to go through everything that I have knit or crocheted since my last podcast episode 2 years ago. So I'm going to jump right in. I had to rewatch my last episode to remember where I left off, and I left off with, I had finished my color block dress, I was wearing it, and I was showing off the entrelac dress that I had just cast on. So I am gonna go chronologically. So that dress actually ended up hibernating for a few months and didn't get finished until the following June in 2024. So in that time, I really got busy crocheting. And so the first one that I actually made was this one right here. So this is a plain and simple granny square blanket. Started in the middle, worked my way to the outside. These are, I think these are just Michael's brand yarns. I think one of these is a Karen Simply Soft that I had in stash, like of some old brown, variegated color. These might have been Karen 1 pound. I'm just gonna put a link to my full Ravelry page instead of listing out all of these projects link by link. I'm just gonna put a link to my whole project page and they will all be on there. That's actually what I'm looking at as a reference to remember what I actually worked on. So I started with this. I didn't know until like a year and a half later that you're supposed to alternate which direction that you go in every other row on a granny square blanket, so that it doesn't warp out of shape. And I did not do that. So this is like a queen size blanket, I think. And it was meant to go on my bed, but I got tired of the warping fabric and I haven't used it as a blanket in a long time. I used it sometimes. It's very good for the winter because it's quite heavy actually. I use very chunky yarn. I think it was all Aran weight yarns, worsted or Aran. So, but it's very soft. I love the colors. I don't know. I love this blanket. It was just annoying me with the fabric warping, so I never really touched it. And now it feels like it has a perfect spot covering the whole couch. So beautiful, worked out. The next item that I don't have physically. For any of the items that I don't have physically, I will at least put a picture up. That's why I'm kind of like over here for picture space. The next one was a blanket for Corey, my partner. I'll talk a little bit at the end about all of the life changes that also went on over the last 2 years that also led to preventing me from recording too much. But at the end. So the next one was a blanket for Corey. It was his birthday and he is a big Denver sports fan. So he loves the Broncos blue and orange. So I started with those colors and kind of built a whole color palette off of that. And I made him another granny square blanket, except his is king size because he is a very big boy. He is 6'5", so I wanted to intentionally make the blanket like at least as long as he was tall. I think I made it at least 7 feet long actually, to make sure that I wanted him to have the experience of being able to pull it up over his shoulder and still get to tuck it under his feet. I wanted to give him that luxury. So I did that blanket, and then still on the granny square train, I did this one next. This is, I think I called this my garden blanket or something, or at least I do mentally. I was picturing a garden when I did these. So if I remember correctly, when I was trying to make these blankets, I think I got an app on my phone, and it was like just a random wheel spinner. And I put all of my colors in and I just spun the wheel for every row. So that's why there's like some big long chunks of the same color. And then, yeah, it feels very random. And that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted very randomized color rows. I did the same thing on Corey's blanket. I did the same thing on this blanket. I just spun the wheel for every single row and then crocheted whatever color it landed on. Once I got to like the end and I was running out of yarn, I think I kept hitting green even after this. And I was just like, I have no more green left. So you can go in and like remove certain slices of the pie or whatever it is, slices of the wheel to get down to whatever colors you have left. So I love this blanket. I use it all the time on my couch in the other room when I'm sitting over there to work. Again, Michael's yarn. I think this is probably like the Impeccable or something like that. I can't remember exactly. All of the information will be on the project pages. I assure you, I am so good about updating Ravelry now. Okay, I finished that blanket and then promptly said I want another one that's square. So it's the same length in either direction. I don't have to worry about orienting it right to cover my feet. So then I moved on to this granny square blanket. And again, all of these were not done going in opposite directions on the rows. So I'm sure that there's some level of warping in these, but it's not nearly as noticeable as this blanket. So these are much more tolerable to use all the time. So this one is an actual square, and I started with this color, which was, I believe, desert something. And I think it was a Karen, like an old Karen colorway, unless it was like, oh, you know what? Maybe it was Craft Smart or something like that. It was one of those really old brands. I've had this in my stash for over 10 years. I got it when I was a kid. Never used it, even though I love the color. The only time I used some of this yarn was making Myrtle, who was my centaur mascot. So I had, I think this might be, oh no, it's not. So maybe this was the Karen 1 pound burgundy that I had. But clearly I love burgundy. The walls, the blankets, this blanket. You'll see some other projects I'm working on that are also burgundy. I love the color burgundy. And then the rest of these colors on the outside rows are all, excuse me, I inherited another stash from one of my grandmother's friends up in New Hampshire. Her name is Mrs. Sackmary, and I believe she's in her 90s now, so she doesn't do much, or she doesn't do any crafting anymore. But I inherited a lot of yarns from her, and I loved the way that they worked together with these colors that I already had, these two. So I added those on, and I really, really love these colorways together. This is one of my favorite blankets. I'm pretty sure my mom also wants this blanket. But I am making another blanket for my mom, which I will show. So that was my fourth. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, this was my fourth one. Fourth granny blanket. And then I was starting to slow down. I was like, okay, I think I've had enough of the crochet. But I still did one more because I still had more yarn in that inherited stash that I wanted to use up. So this is a smorgasbord of a bunch of different yarns. This one did not make a full blanket. It ends here. So it was supposed to end up being like kind of like a shawl. And I still would actually like to wear this as a shawl. I intentionally did like a gradient of greens because there were so many of them. So there's like this grassy green followed by this teal kind of. There's like a really vibrant green there in the middle. I'll get a better picture. Oh, and then it goes back to the vibrant green and then out to this blue. Yeah, I really worked. I worked for this pattern. I made this up myself. I think I just laid the colors out randomly on the floor until I liked the design enough, and then I took this. This is actually like some kind of boucle or like chenille yarn or something. I can't remember exactly what it was. I'm sure it is on the Ravelry page. It was very, very soft. And I used that for a scalloped border because Mrs. Sackmary loves a scalloped border. And actually I did this before I even knew that, but she encourages me to put a scalloped edge on every blanket that I ever make. And the only problem with this project is that it has so many ends. And I hate weaving in ends in crochet. Knitting is a breeze. I'll weave in ends all day long on knitting. Crochet, I shan't. I shan't do it. I will tie knots everywhere possible. And if I can't tie a knot, I don't. I don't touch the yarn ends. So that's the only thing that's left on this blanket, shawl, granny square, whatever project. All of the ends are still there. I know in like the center of the square I can easily weave that in. That one's not as big of a deal. But towards the edges here, at the edge of the square, I don't know how to weave these in. Give me tips, please. Help me figure out how to weave in these ends so I can actually use this, because it's just sitting at the bottom of a basket right now and I really want to give this more love. I think I would really like wearing this at least around the house. So that was my last Granny Square adventure for 2024. Fully tired myself out of Granny Square projects after that. So then I believe, so then I did finally get back into actually knitting. And I went back to my entrelac dress. Entrelac. So this is finished. I will put in a clip of me wearing it. I have not worn this once since I finished it, and I feel bad about that. The only problem was I love it. It ended up being a lot more form-fitting than I was looking for. I did stretch it out when I was blocking it. It just didn't stretch out as much as I thought it would being superwash. I didn't take into consideration that all of these are mini seams and really prevent it from stretching out the same way that my other superwash projects do. So I made it way too small. I wish I hadn't, because I think this is one of the most gorgeous things I've ever made. I did add a lot more length onto the bottom because I can't remember if in the clip it was the shorter version or not, but it was very short on my body. So I added a lot more rows down at the bottom for the ribbing. But again, it's so form-fitting, and I think I've gained at least 30 pounds since that video was taken. So it will be even more form-fitting. So I have not worn this. So in my next episode, I plan on going through the knits that I have finished, and I want to reclaim the yarn and try them again. So this is going to be in the next video, and I'm going to talk a lot more about what I actually want to fix in this garment, how I'm going to do it, and all those types of plans. So unfortunately, this will not be staying. As much as I love this project dearly, the yarns are so soft. I love the colors. I still love the idea. I just don't think that entrelac was the right technique to be doing a form-fitting dress for me. Maybe one day I'll try it again, but this will stay an entrelac project. I may or may not swap out the Miss Babs yarn because I found out it is like a slightly different weight from the rest of the sock yarns that are in this, and that bothers me a little bit. So I might pull that out and make a hat or something else with it, or maybe just do socks with it since it is a sock base. And I will find another color that's very similar to this to kind of keep that bluish tinge in there. So that might be one of the only things that changes, but we'll see. Maybe I'll unravel it all and I'll just be like, I love this so much, I'll just keep it in this project. So maybe that'll be what happens. All right, I need to figure out where to put all these projects once I'm done showing. So I finished that one, and then it was summertime. I think it was June of 2024. So I cast on this top. And this is as you can see, a very deep V-neck tank top with a is it called a racerback? A racerback, I think. And this was using Into the World's Captain Tight Pants colorway on the front. And this was an old Cascade, another Cascade Heritage sock in just white. I wanted this to be very secure and not stretch out as I was wearing it. So this is all herringbone stitch, which I love. I had to go up like, I can't remember how many needle sizes, at least 2 needle sizes for the herringbone to not have an extremely stiff fabric, but I really do love the way that this feels. And again, this is, I think, going to get reclaimed and reknit. Not to do like a different design. I still really like the design, but I knit this with a needle size just a bit too large for the sock. I'm realizing that like my gauge was way too loose. I was just a loose knitter. I've somewhat corrected that now. But when I knit this, I knit it really, really loose on a US 2. So it is decently see-through. It is decently see-through in the sun, which wouldn't normally bother me, but I don't want to make people uncomfortable. I don't own bras. I don't wear them. I haven't for years. So I don't want to make people uncomfortable when I wear this out in public. So I think I'm going to reknit this to be a tighter gauge so that I can actually wear it. So this comes down very far in the front. It comes down to like, I want to say mid-thigh, which I love. And then it's just an open back other than the racer back. And this is, I think this was a waffle stitch that I ended up doing. I think it's a waffle stitch. I'm not positive, but I really like the texture. It was a haul to get through this with that waffle stitch. But I love the way that the fabric looks and feels. I love these colors. I love everything about this. I would just wish I hadn't knit it so loosely. So this is another one that I have worn this out. But once I realized that it was like a little bit on the indecent side, I stopped wearing it out. And I would love to be able to wear it again because I really do love this color. So that was that one. Let me see. And then I think we were getting closer to winter time at that point, or like fall winter. So I was starting to think more about fall accessories and things that I could knit. So at this point, I believe I was staying out with Corey in Denver, or I had at least been out there at some point that summer, and we had picked out yarns for him so that I picked out a bunch 5 mini skeins, or he picked out 5 mini skeins in the colors that he wanted, and I started making us hats. So I made him this first one, and I don't have it on me. It is with him still out in Denver. He does wear it all the time. It makes me so happy. So I started with this one, and this was inspired by the Musselburgh hat, in that I didn't like buy the pattern or use their stitch counts or anything. I found my own gauge and I did my own measurements and I found my own stitch counts that way. But in that, it's knit from like the cap, and then you just knit one long tube and then do a cap on the other end, and then you tuck it inside of itself. So this is my hat, which I did after his. And these were, again, mini skeins from the same yarn shop that we visited out in, I think it was Boulder, Colorado. So this is my autumn hat. I love this hat so much. I love that they are reversible. So the stripes could go the other way if I wanted like the white cap, but I think I like it better on the other side with the darker cap. Yeah, I like the green on top. Something about it. I love the double thickness. I wear this all the time. I have become something of a hat person, which I have never been in my life. But ever since I knit these, they are just so comfy, so cozy. Anytime I haven't washed my hair, I just throw this on top of my head and still go out. It's like the most comforting thing to wear on my head. So I knit this one for me. I don't remember the yarn or the dyer, but again, it will be on the Ravelry page. So I did these two, and then I did one more, which I again don't have. This one I made for my sister, and this one I do remember the yarn. I used the Barnyard Knits Deluxe Sock on the Pumpkin Patch colorway. So I made that one for my sister because she loved my autumn hat so much. So I gave that one to her. And then I can't remember if we were coming up on Corey's next birthday. Must have been something like that. And I designed him an iron golem. We had been playing Minecraft together, and we had built a little iron golem for our base. He walked around and we called him Frederick, and he kept us safe from everything at night. And we were just having so much fun playing Minecraft together. So I designed this. I have not written up a pattern. I think maybe I will one day, but I want to knit it again and make sure that I can follow my own instructions. And I want to put step-by-step pictures in as well. But if you go to the Ravelry page, I'm pretty sure all of the instructions that I wrote down for this project are already on there anyways. So if you can decipher my notes, you can make this as well. So this is a Barnyard Knits colorway. This is the same one-of-a-kind colorway that's in the color block dress from my last episode. I thought it was perfect for an iron golem. I have little buttons on the side there. I think this was also Barnyard Knits. I want to say it was a mini skein that I got in the one advent calendar that I got for her, which I didn't like. I didn't think that there was any cohesion in her advent calendar whatsoever, so I won't be buying another one from her. As much as I love her regular yarns, I will just stick to buying her usual colors. But it did have this brown, which I used for his eyebrow as well, and I think I used it a tiny bit underneath the eyes. I think I did like one row under the eyes. And then the darker brown was another mini skein, but I think this one was from Mountaintop Yarns. I think it was like a free mini skein that was thrown in with one of the sock skeins that I bought. So I knit all of the pieces, and then I seamed them together so that the seam was on the outside, specifically so that it held its shape in like a really boxy form and you could clearly see the shapes. So there's a lot of them. The bottom of his feet are the same colors as his eyes. I have all of I think I put how many grams I used, not like exact yardage, but again, it'll be on the project page. I love this guy. I think we did name him Frederick, just like after our iron golem in the game. And it was really funny. I was sending Corey videos while I was doing this, and I took measurements of each of the pieces by like having a picture of a golem up on my computer screen, and I like kind of like guesstimating like this with like holding my needle out against the screen and being like, oh, okay, yeah, that's that length, and oh, this one's that length, and oh, this one. It was so much guesstimating, and it was so much work, and it was so worth it for this little guy. Thanks. I love this guy. So he sits up on my yarn shelf over there right next to Myrtle. I will put him back up there after. I gotta knit more stuffed animals. I love knitting stuffed animals. Okay, my next project was, I called this the home sweater, mostly because it's cropped and I don't feel confident enough to wear cropped shirts out of the house too often. And it is cropped because I ran out of yarn. That is the only reason. This was not a design choice. But I used, this is Barnyard Knits Farm Fresh on deluxe sock base. I think I only had 3 skeins of it. And this is about the time when I was actually fixing my gauge. So I think I knit this on a US 2. It might have been a US 1, but I want to say I knit it on a US 2. But my gauge was so much closer to what it should be on a US 2. It wasn't as open as my dress or the waffle top that I just showed. So I actually used up a lot more yarn than I did on those projects. So yes, ran out right about there. And then the opening here, I did a V-neck, and I picked up, I think I was originally going to overlap this, so it was going to be like kind of like that. But I think while I was doing it, I was getting so frustrated with figuring out how to do that I just gave up and I said, fine, it'll just be a V-neck. I'll pick up the stitches on either side and I'll just knit until they meet. And that's that. So this is Shirsty Cat Heart of the Giant. This is the rest of that yarn. I added it on the sleeves as well, and I love the way that this looks. I love having that color change on the end of the sleeves. I'm gonna for sure continue doing that in my future projects. This was, I think, the first sweater that I made where I really, really liked the fit. So I took this and made this. So this is my Bear Paw sweater. This one is a full length. And this is, again, Barnyard Knits. Wow, I'm realizing like just how much Barnyard Knits knitting I did. She is one of my favorite dyers. I really, really like her yarn colors. This Farm Fresh one, I have been waiting for her to restock on the deluxe sock base for so long. She doesn't do all of her colorways on this base, and she doesn't dye this base that often. So, but it is my favorite base. It's the 85-15 one instead of the 75-25. So I have been waiting forever to get one more skein of this yarn so that I can finish this and wear it more often. But for now, that remains a home sweater. So I took all of those stitch counts and I made this one. And this is a turtleneck. And I think this neck opening ended up being too wide because the turtleneck was supposed to like fully double over and be a very thick turtleneck. But as you can see, it's very small just because of the way it sits. And I have finally realized that when I'm designing a neck opening, I don't need to design a full opening like this. I just need how wide across the back does it need to be. And the rest of the shaping will just make it fit. So I've been designing huge neck openings. So this could have been a lot tighter. And it's not enough that I want to reknit this. I will never reknit this. This is one of my favorite. This is probably the best sweater I've ever made. So, but I did this in Barnyard Knits. This is the Riverwalk colorway, which I was showing off. This is the project that I was showing off in my last episode. At the very end, I said this is the yarn that I wanted to use. It was going to be a dress. But then of course I fixed my gauge and then realized that I actually do need 5 skeins for a full sweater and not 5 skeins for a floor length dress. So plans got changed. This is just a sweater. It does end very nicely past my hips, which I love. I love that kind of a length. I did this in Riverwalk, and then the collar here, the cuffs here, and a little bit on the hem are all in the colorway By the Fire in the same base from Barnyard Knits. And then this is the red. I'm not going to remember the dyer or anything else about this red, but this is the red that I inherited from Peggy. So I did the cuffs, I did the hem on the very bottom, and of course this is a duplicate stitched bear paw motif, which I designed. I can't remember if the chart is on the project page. If not, I will put a quick picture here. But I drew this myself in, I believe it's called Chartminder. I think I did it in the free version, so I don't think you need to pay for it in order to do the same kind of a thing. So I drew this all out in Chartminder and then spent a few days stitching it on. I did not want to do intarsia for this. It felt very daunting to learn how to do it for something like shaped like this. I do eventually want to learn how to do intarsia like that. But I will stick with straight lines for now with intarsia. Eventually I'll get there. But I did add some waist shaping on this garment. I think this is also the garment where I learned that I needed to take measurements from upper bust and not full bust. And like I really learned better how to measure my body to create a garment that's going to fit well. So I learned a lot of things with this. I can see that there is like some puckering fabric here, which doesn't bother me in the look, but I know that like some designers have better methods of shaping to avoid that sort of puckering in the armhole. This whole area here is always very tricky for me somehow. It's still always a work in progress of like tweaking my designs and my stitch counts to really learn how to continue making garments that really fit my body. But that's part of the process that I love the most. So I really enjoy going through that. The only other thing on this sweater is my sleeves end right at my wrist. And I intentionally did that because I don't know why, because I loved where the sleeves ended on this sweater. I said, this is perfect. This is exactly the way I love sleeves. And then I said, but there's like a tiny bit of bunching on that sleeve. Maybe I'll take out 8 stitches on, or 8 rows on my next sweater, and that'll just be perfect. And it ended up being not enough fabric, but I ran out of yarn, so I can't lengthen them. But it doesn't bother me enough to want to fix it. So my sleeves end there. I wish they came a little bit further down, but for my next project, I will put those 8 rows back in. So that's this one. Let me go reference. Okay. After this sweater, I did a gift for my friend Adrian. I made her a giant tampon. This was, again, with just Michael's yarns. She is the one who came up with the idea for it. And I just did a little sketch, said, oh, like something like this, wouldn't that be insane? And she was like, yes, it would be absolutely insane. So I made it and I gave it to her. And then because I was on the train of making stuffed animals, I made Greta, and she is meant to be an isopod. I don't love how she turned out. So I think while I was making her, I struggled so much with the engineering of designing her body because I wanted her to have individual sections, even though this isn't, I currently keep isopods as pets. They have 7 sections. So there's the head, 5 in the middle, and then a tail. I didn't do that. But I wanted to design it so that you could roll her up and it would look smooth. And in my head, this was supposed to do that. So it was supposed to unfurl like this. This would go straight, and then this would, like, I don't know. In my head, this was supposed to be really, really cool and really well engineered. And it's more just, it's just this. So I still want an Isopod plushie. I love the yarn. This is the Loops and Threads, their sock yarn that they had a long time ago, which you can no longer get in stores. You can only get it online. And to me, that means that they're going to stop making it at any time. So these I just had in stash. This was the gifted colorway from one of you. Thank you. I know I was originally going to make like a cardigan or something out of the balls that you gave me, but I ran out of black and I really wanted her to have a purple butt for some reason. So yes, I'm going to have to reclaim this. I'm going to have to figure out how to reclaim these eyes. I know that they're supposed to be like, once they're in, they're permanent. So maybe when I reclaim this yarn, I can figure out a way to crochet these into the next project. Or maybe I just throw them away. I don't know. But I got so frustrated with this whole project that I didn't even do legs. So she has sat on my couch for a long time with very little attention given to her. But eventually I will reclaim this yarn and fix her and make an actual Isopod that looks and operates exactly the way that I want. So if you also keep Isopods, I have 2 wild bins. One of them is my Armadillidium vulgare, and the second one is my Porcellio scabbers. And I actually have some really cool color mutations in the scabber bin. So I have 1 Dalmatian, unless it was like a tag-along baby Isopod that was in my container of springtails that I got. I got small containers of springtails for both of the tanks, and I divided them between the 2. But in my second tank with the scabbers, I saw a Panda King just out of the blue one day. I saw it like twice, and then I never saw it again. So I assume it perished. R.I.P. R.I.P. my 1 Panda King. And then now I see this 1 Dalmatian, but I don't know if it's a dairy cow, which is a different Porcellio, or if it's a Porcellio scabber dairy cow, or not dairy cow, a Dalmatian. So both of them are white and black. They are very hard to distinguish for me still as a hobbyist. But anyways, I love Isopods. I'm going to make another Isopod. I will make another Isopod. I will make a better Isopod. Okay, and then after Greta, I believe I started a temperature blanket, my first temperature blanket. And that was for Corey. I did his birth year, which is 1994. I did his favorite colors, so orange and blue on a gradient. And I made the biggest blanket I've ever made in my entire life. This currently resides here because he brought it here the last time he came to visit. It fit perfectly on the bed and we slept under it every night. Excuse me. I'm not going to be able to show this whole thing. It is so big. It is so big. But I did half and half garter stitch squares, mitered squares, where I just did intarsia down the center for each of them. So it's the, oh, because this isn't the right corner. This is the star that I put on his birthday date. So it's the high temperature and the low temperature, and then that's his birthday. So I started up here with the blues, and I worked my way all the way down. I love this project. And then I did a little I-cord edging around the entire thing. And then down at the other corner, let me find it. This blanket's so big. Down here, I did duplicate stitching for Corey, 1994. This does curl up because this is the only part of the blanket that is in stockinette. This was the full, I forget how many squares by how many squares. All the information will be on the project page because I can't remember now, but it ended up having like, how many squares is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It ended up having 9 squares in the bottom where there were no temperatures. So I stockinette knit in that area, and then I did the duplicate stitching, and then I started the I-cord bind off all the way around. And then I spent the very long process of, oh, sorry for that flutter. There was a bird at my window. Started the very long process of not weaving in ends and simply tying knots on every corner. So this entire blanket is held together by knots. It has held up exceptionally well. I did not block it in any way, shape, or form other than throwing it on the bed, and as we slept under it, it stretched out into its relaxed shape. There's so much hair on it. Eva is our dog. Eva sleeps on this with us. I'll actually put in a little clip over this, or maybe I have already, of Eva sitting on the blanket after I finished it, but like still had to weave in all the ends, tie knots. So there was that temperature blanket that took me about 3 months. I think it was 3 months because I started it in the beginning of, did I finish it this year? I think it was this year. I started it in the beginning of 2025 and I finished it just before his birthday, I think, which was in May. So I think it only took me 3 months. I also started making us both some socks. I started getting on a huge sock kick. So I made Corey this pair of socks. And then, oh, I made these actually before I started the temperature blanket. I finished those before I started the temperature blanket. Those were again for his birthday. Because that was, maybe that wasn't for his birthday. I was just making him socks. That was the week that he was driving back from Florida with Eva. He had just rescued her. We just rescued her earlier this year. And I was like, oh my God, he's only going to be gone for like a few days. Let me try and make him a full pair of socks. And because he is such a big boy, they are size 15 feet. So they're very long socks. I was shocked that I was able to knit them that quickly. So I made him that pair of socks, and then I used the leftovers of the yarn that I used for his temperature blanket, and I made him a sweater. So this is, I left out 1 or 2 colorways, I want to say, because they weren't the same yarn. This is all impeccable yarn from Michaels, so I left out whatever wasn't impeccable yarn. And I taught myself how to do intarsia in the round, which was such a pain in the butt. It was so hard. So, but I taught myself how to do intarsia in the round so that I could add these stripes just in the front. I used up most of the navy that I had left in my stash. I did the cuffs in the same colors. I did, of course, the neckline in the same colors. I left the bottom hem alone, and I think that looks pretty nice like that. I think it might have been too much if I added this colorway one more time at the bottom, so I just left it. So he has not had a chance to wear this yet because I finished it over the summer. So he will start wearing this once he gets here for the holidays. I'm so excited to see him in it. So that was the first sweater that I made for him. And then I got right back into socks. So I made this pair of socks that I'm wearing right now. And this is, I'm gonna forget exactly which yarn it is, but I know it's a Lang sock, and I got it as a Christmas present from my sister-in-law a few years ago. I have one more ball of a different base on the Lang sock line, and it's more like grays, and I think it's another self-striping one. So I have to make another pair of socks out of that ball as well at some point. But then I wanted to, because I only had like 3 pairs of socks in my wardrobe at that point, those were basically the only socks that I wore for the entire winter for like 2 years because they were so nice. So I wore right through them very, very quickly, all of them. So I ended up getting something to darn them with, which is actually my little lady back here. I was looking for something just cheap anywhere that I could use to darn my garments, and I found this rabbit at a thrift store in a bag of like a couple of other home good items. So I just tucked this into the sock like this, and I darned it right over her body. So this is my darning rabbit. I have to give her a name too. Maybe I'll paint her as well. Maybe I won't, because she's going inside of garments to get stitched over. I don't want to like accidentally chip away at the paint. Okay, so maybe she'll just remain as she is. But this is my darning rabbit. And I used her to fix up my red socks. So I'm sorry these haven't been washed in a little bit since I wore them. But I, discovered that I was making my socks way too short in the foot. So I ripped off the toes, and I first darned the bottom where they were going thin, which was a big area. And then I added the rest of this length and a new toe on in the same color. And now they look like little hooves on my feet, which I think is so funny. I think it's so cute when I'm wearing them. So now I have an actual like well-fitting sock. I'm not like shoving my feet in there and being like, it's superwash, it'll stretch out as I wear it. Crazy. It doesn't stretch out that much when you make a garment that fits. So I did that with my socks. Where did my other one go? Same thing on this one. I darned it. It's in a slightly different shape. And then added the toe. So I fixed up these. I actually did the same thing on these because I knit this pair of socks and I realized that it was the same case where I had made it too short in the foot. My toes were like really pushing out the end. And I was going to wear through them way too fast. So while I did that, I also ripped out the toes on these and reknit them with more length and finished them off again. And then, let me see, I did one more pair of socks for Corey. And this was using another one-of-a-kind skein from Barnyard Knits that I had in my stash. This was actually one of the skeins that I bought it and then I got it in person, and then I wasn't as in love with the color as I thought I was in person. And then I knit these socks, and I actually really like it a lot more in a garment than I did in the skein. So I'm going to eventually make myself a matching pair because I have 2 more skeins of this yarn and whatever was left over from making this pair of socks for Corey. I would love to know how much yarn in grams that you use for your socks. My socks are not super tall, not super short, and I think I use about 56 grams on average for my socks. And for his socks, I think I use like 67 to 70 grams. But that seems like such a small amount of yarn usage for such big socks. I feel like I have so much left over in that skein. But either way, I got socks out of it, so it's okay. And then I moved on to make this pair of socks for myself. And this is using Hope Made yarn, the JoJo's Favorite base, and the colorway is Cobblestones. Ah, I'm so proud of myself that I remembered it. So I made these socks for myself. I did not block them. I just kind of immediately threw them on and wore them until they were the right shape. I don't block socks, I just wear them immediately. So these ones still need a good wash. All of my socks need a good wash at this point. Let's see, we're nearing the end. So the next one is a pair of socks, again, that I made for Corey. We picked out these colors at the yarn store nearest to him in Denver. So these are both colorways by Leading Men Fiber Arts. This is the tag from the pair of socks that I'm working on for myself right now. I'm still in my sock craze. I'm still in it. I love making socks right now. So if I don't have a picture, I will insert the little video that I took of him walking in them, because I knew I wasn't going to get a picture before I came back to Massachusetts. I knew I was going to forget. But if he remembers to give me a picture, I'll put it in here while I'm editing. So that's the last pair of socks that I have completed. That is everything that I've made since my last video. I do have 4 projects on the needles right now. I don't have them all with me, so I will start with what I do have with me. This is my current pair of socks, and these are actually leg warmer socks that I wanted to try making. So this is Viking Fibers in, I forget the colorway. It's his Torrig sock base, which I believe is 75/25. I think it's only a 2-ply, whereas I normally see a 4-ply, but I think this one's just a 2-ply. And I cast on my usual cast on, which is the Italian cast on. And oh god, I'm sorry, I said cast on too many times in that sentence. But I used my usual Italian cast on, and that is, that is specifically for 1x1 ribbing. And I knew I wanted the leg warmer part to be, this is 84 stitches across. My usual sock size is 64 in the ankle and 68 in the foot. I knew I wanted it to be a 4x2 rib, so I just ran with it anyway. So I did my 1x1 rib cast on, and then I did 2 rows of 1x1 rib, so it gives this kind of mock frill on the top, which I actually think is adorable. And then switched to my 4x2 rib, and I did that for 120 rows, which took me forever. And I almost hit a wall and threw these into a hibernation basket or something, but I finally finished this cuff, I think it was 2 nights ago, very late at night, and then started working on the actual sock portion yesterday. So this is all progress from yesterday. I got through the rest of the leg, the heel flap and turn, and this is like only 2 rows into the gusset or something. So I'm going to continue knitting on these for the rest of the day. That's my current work in progress. I have 2 temperature blankets in progress. One of them is for this year. I'm doing basically a heat map. I went to Joann's and I bought a whole bunch of colors from their Big Twist line before they went out of business. So I spent a lot of time graphing temperatures from 2024 to kind of get an idea of how much of each colorway I would need for 2025. So I hope I got enough of the colors that I need. If not, I'm kind of screwed. But anyways, I will go grab that blanket, and I will go grab the other blanket that I am also working on, and the one other project that I also have on the needles that's been in hibernation for at least a year, but I will get back to it eventually. So let me go grab those. Okay, I will start with my 2025 temperature blanket. This is the second temperature blanket I am doing. I chose these colors from Big Twist, and these are my temperature breakdowns. And every day I wake up and I open up my weather app and I log all of the temperatures from the previous day. Oh, now I'm out of breath from running around. But I log all of my temperatures from the previous day, and I am currently 3 or 4 months behind on my actual crocheting. But while I was home and not in Denver, I was keeping up with it very well. So I do have a good amount to show. So this is the blanket. And I decided to do a moss stitch chevron blanket. Oh, where's this yarn coming from? There we go. Okay. So a moss stitch chevron blanket. And I will slowly go up. You can see it is very much like an actual heat map, because I did 24 chevrons, and every chevron represents 1 hour of the day. So I did the temperature at every hour for the whole year. So this is gonna look really cool when it's done. I cannot wait until it's done. It is the softest, squishiest, warmest thing ever. I love sitting underneath it. It was tough in the summer to sit underneath this blanket and crochet on it. I'm not gonna lie to you, especially during these really, really warm days. This is, I think, my 80-degree color. And then like there's like a nearly black kind of purple in the middle there. I don't know if it's like really distinguishable enough from the rest of the purple, but you can see it in person. It's much darker. Oh, you can kind of see it better there. So there's like 2 or 3 rows of 90-degree days. But anyways, this has been a monster of a project. I really enjoy working on it. I love having like a mindless crochet kind of a project. As mindless as it can be with how often I have to change colors, but I am again doing knots for the entire blanket. I don't care. I am not weaving in ends. This is entirely knots holding everything together. Everywhere there's a color change, there's an itty bitty knot. But my knots seem to hold up pretty well, so I am not complaining. They're not super bulky, so this has been a really, really fun project for me to work on. And I have a little bear stitch marker on this side. This is my end of the right side row. And then I have a little, I think this came in the same set. This might have been in one of my advent calendars last year or 2 years ago. Just a little like tiger's eye or something, or maybe that's, I don't know what stone that is. But that is my end of the wrong side row. So now that I am home and have a lot of time, I will get back to trying to catch up on that as much as I humanly can before the end of the year, and see if I can't still finish it on like the first day of the year of 2026. If I could have like a completed 2025 temperature blanket on January 1st, 2026, I think that would be that'd be a miracle. That'd be so cool. So next one, Mom, if you're watching, don't skip this part because this is your temperature blanket. So shoo shoo. This is my mom's temperature blanket, and she wanted to be surprised by the style of the blanket but she did approve the colors that I picked out for her. And that means I picked out every single of the darkest colors that Michael's Impeccable line had. So she loves dark colors. So let me figure out which corner is like where I actually started. That's the only thing that I can't seem to remember. All right, that's obviously the back. Maybe it was this one? Oh my God, I have literally no idea. I think it went this way. So this is like day one, and then I go across this way, all the way to here. So this is almost the full width of the blanket. She wanted it to be like a bedspread, so I'm doing big hexagons where the inner hexagon is the low temp and the outer hexagon is the high temp, and I am joining as I go, which has actually been really fun to learn. But it, again, does result in all of these ends that I am going to have to figure out how to weave in, because I will not give my mom a blanket with a whole bunch of ends sticking out. So please give me your tips on how to weave in ends in crochet projects. I don't know what I'm doing, and I am daunted by this task. I haven't gotten that much progress done, but I do think that the colors look really nice. There are a few like more brown colors that I haven't gotten into the blanket yet, but it was a project in itself to set up the Google spreadsheet and merge boxes, like alternating boxes in Google Sheets to get a sort of hexagonal layout in the template, and then fill it in with the temperatures. I'll have to show you what I'm talking about because I built this blanket in a spreadsheet before I started it to make sure that I could calculate how much yarn I would need. I have a whole table of like, it counts how many hexagons of the inner and the outer, how much yarn it uses for each of them, and then tells me how much yarn I need to buy of each color. So it's fun. I love doing spreadsheets like that. But anyways, so this is my mom's temperature blanket of her birth year in the town that she was born in. So I will leave both of those out, both of those informations out for her privacy. But yes, so I'm hoping to get this done by her birthday, which will be in April. So fun little project there. Okay, and then my last work in progress is a project that I am really excited for. It's just that I haven't been working on it. I don't know. Yeah, I just haven't touched it in this basket. Sorry, there's so much dog hair on it. I'm trying to get it off. Eva sheds so much. So I'm trying to get that off before I actually pull it up here. But this is, what did I do? Oh, I put it on scrap yarn instead of cables. Okay. Okay. Where is the top? I haven't touched this in such a long time. And as you can see, it is big. So this is going to be a coat. And I'm sure you're looking at me like, Jocelyn, that's ridiculous. That is not going to be a coat. But it is. So this is yarn that I got from Peter Patches, which is a warehouse down in Central Falls, Rhode Island. And he sells milled yarn that he gets from mills across the country. And he sells it for very, very affordable prices. So I get a lot of cones there. But I also get skeins of this. This is a 3-ply, very airy, untreated wool. So it is dyed, but it is not superwash wool. So I have already tested this. I did a swatch and threw it in my washing machine and then in my drying machine, and it felted beautifully. So I am knitting a pea coat, which I will then felt in the washing machine down to my actual size. So this is going to be an absolutely massive knitting undertaking, which I will then felt down to a normal wool pea coat size. I am beyond excited for this to be done. So these are, is this where it comes out in the front for the collar? I think this is the front. This must be the front. So this will come out like this. And then I will knit button bands down the center. I still have to do arms in these gigantic armholes. I am so excited about this project. I bought so much yarn for it, but the balls of yarn are, I think they're 3 ounces. I'm not 100% sure on that. Maybe they're like 2 ounces, but they're only like $3 a piece. So I bought like all of the rest of these colors because he's had them in stock for so long and he only gets like 1 shipment and then that's it. He just puts out what he has and then once it's gone, it's gone. So I got a bunch of different colors and I am striping them all the way down to the bottom. I can't wait to see what it does when it's felted. I thought I was going to be doing it in a washing machine. I'm second guessing myself right this second, and maybe I should do hand felting in water in like a tub or something, but I don't know. And I don't know when I'm going to pick this back up again, so it's not something I have to think about right this second. So that is my last work in progress. I said earlier in this video, my next idea is going to be, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to talk about my knits that I already have in my wardrobe that I want to frog completely and start over, mostly with my new knitting knowledge, my longer years of experience in knitting and understanding how things fit my body. I want to pull some of my garments back and re-knit them start to finish with new techniques that I think will fit my body a lot better. So there is at least the entrelac dress. I know I have at least one other sweater. There are quite a few things that I want to take back and start over on and fix them to become garments that I will wear a lot more often than I currently do, which is not at all. One of the sweaters I do actually wear because I still really, really love it and it's super cozy, but I would like the fit on me better if I redid it. So I'm going to talk about those in my next episode, and hopefully that won't be too long from now that I have an actual proper space to sit and chat and talk about these things. Life updates in the last 2 years. If you have been with me from the beginning, I had a different partner at that time. This was a 5-year relationship that ended on my way home from Rhinebeck 2023. So it needed to happen. It was a good thing that it ended. I needed to move forward with my life. So I met Corey in January of 2024. So we are coming up on almost 2 years together. It's been a world of difference in my life. I am so incredibly grateful to have him in my life. I no longer have Frog and Toad. My cats got rehomed after the breakup. I was not in a good place. I was not able to properly care for them, and I was feeling exceptionally guilty about it. And I still believe it was the right decision, even now, as much as I miss them every day. But Corey and I have Eva, who has become such a joy in my life. I never thought I would be such a dog person, but I am now. I have my isopods, I have my home projects, I have my family. I am in a much better place now. I was having medical issues the last 2 years. I had a headache that lasted about 8 months continuously. It was really, really hard. I still have headache flare-ups under any amount of stress. So learning how to manage that has been a project for me. But overall, I am in a much better place now, and I'm really excited to be getting back into doing the things that I know I love, like this podcast, like my crafts. I did start streaming on Twitch when I play video games. I haven't done that in a very long time as well, but I would love to get back into doing that when I do play video games. So I am really happy to be in the place that I am right now in my life. I think these are the years that I was looking forward to, and I'm just really grateful to be here. So thank you so much for spending this time with me, going through all of these projects with me. Tell me which one was the most interesting to you. Tell me what you're working on. I would love to hear everything from you guys. It's been such a long time since I've done this. I'm just really excited to talk to everyone again. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend, the rest of your week, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.